People call me a futurist, and I'm going to tell you why you should never trust futurists. The first is that there are no qualifications required for being a futurist. And the second is that most futurists are what I would call techno-utopian optimists. So they believe that technology is going to solve all of our problems. I'm a big fan of the power of technology, but our problems are not technological. They're moral, they're ethical, they're environmental. And if we start thinking we can solve them just by applying technology, then we end up not with artificial intelligence, but artificial stupidity. As Bill Gates famously said, if you apply technology to a rubbish process, you'll just make it more rubbish. So you really need to think about it. Technology is not the answer, really. It's a question. And the question is, given this new tool, how might we rethink the world to be more sustainable, equitable, humane, and just? The other reason you shouldn't trust futurists is because human beings are terrible at making predictions. And one of the reasons is that every single human being is prejudiced. I like to say, if you want to find the nearest prejudiced person, you're just going to look in the mirror. Because we're all a victim of the year we were born, the music that grabbed us when we were teenagers, the technology that was around when we were growing up, the language we speak, the body we're born into. And that means you've got a 1/8 billionth view of the truth. The problem is it's your own truth, so it's all you can rely on, but it's partial. And that means you tend to predict things that you find financially or emotionally convenient. And that's what futurists generally do, or do for the people who are paying them. And also the world is just too complex. When things start to intertwine and ripple out and bump into each other, you can't predict those things. You can predict email when the internet arrives, but you can't predict social media or how social media undermine democracy. As Neil Ferguson, the British historian, says, the only reliable law of history is the law of unintended consequences. And finally, predictions make you passive. Some futurist who will be wrong tells you what the future is going to be, and you're having to respond to it as if it's preordained, and that makes you kind of non-active in your own future. So I'm with Abraham Lincoln, which is the best way to predict the future is to create it. So my brand of futurism is more about stretching the imagination to the possible, hearing the questions the future is asking you, and then creating a vehicle in which you can have a confident relationship with uncertainty within your own mind, within your own business, within your own government, to create a ship to sail into those winds of change, to be a futurenaut, not a futurist. You cannot survive in the future unless you have a confident relationship with uncertainty. And the future is asking us some difficult questions at the moment. COVID is a good example. The war in Ukraine, what's happening in the Middle East, the geopolitical crises we're seeing, the energy crises. What we've realized is that these are not isolated events, they're all intertwined. And all these crises that have come together have taught pretty much everyone that you cannot separate finance from healthcare, from biodiversity, from climate change, from supply chains, from ethics and morals and governance. And so we have to think about those things together. And the problem with most organizations, they think about them separately. At the moment, we have these terrible civilizational problems that seem insurmountable. Democracies in retreat, inequality is at its highest recorded levels in history. Our healthcare systems are sick care systems that are expensive and inefficient. Our soils are being destroyed and eroded, which basically is the basis of all life on the planet. We have biodiversity collapse. We have a new zoonotic virus crossing over every 4 months from the animal world as we increasingly impact on the natural environment. And so the last pandemic is not the last pandemic of your career. And of course, this is all tied to climate change, which is having unprecedented effects. And what we have here is the crisis of studying economics without studying ecology at the same time. If you look at the root of the word economics, it means management of the home. And ecology means knowledge of the home. And yet nowhere in the world is there an economics course where economists are forced to learn ecology as well, which would be like having physicians who don't learn physiology. It's a complete madness. And yet we laud economists if they know what they're talking about, and yet they don't actually know what they're talking about. And this is why 80% of us don't like our jobs. Because we understand this future is broken, that the measures are wrong, but we feel complicit and helpless because we understand that the system we're working in doesn't work, but it's also how we pay our mortgages and our rent and how we feed our children and pay for our drinks on a Friday night. So we're kind of stuck. Yes, I know it's wrong, but this is how I live, so what do you want me to do? I feel like we're living in the apocalypse, and that's actually true. If you look at the etymology of the word apocalypse, it doesn't mean the end of the world, it means the revealing of the truth. And what's happening now in society is we've all realized that this crisis is not going away, this volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous world. And of course, organizations have a solution. It's a good solution. They all have the same one, and they call it innovation. And I'm a big fan of innovation, and I get called an innovation expert, but most companies can't innovate. They talk about it as a corporate value, but they don't do it, even if they really want to. And that's because of the 5 most important words ever said about organizational psychology, which is culture eats strategy for breakfast. Or as Upton Sinclair, the American novelist, put it, difficult to get somebody to understand something when their salary depends upon them not understanding it. You want me to innovate, which means do things differently, which means do things that I'm not paid to do and that you're not going to reward me for, maybe I won't. So what is innovation really? My definition is that innovation is the culture of asking the right question. The problem is the questions that you need to ask yourself, the innovative ones, are ones you don't know exist. By definition, an innovative question is one that wouldn't occur to you. Now, 3 reasons that you need to get on board with the current crisis and start to think differently. The first is the existential one, which is the whole world's going to hell in a handcart if we carry on damaging the environment the way we are, and each other, and the mental health burden that comes with people hating their jobs and being trapped in this horrible system. It's just horrific. People keep saying to me, Mark, why do you keep trying to save the planet? And my answer is pretty simple. It's my favorite planet. It's where all my stuff is and all the people I love are. And you would think that would be enough for most people. Turns out it isn't. So if you don't care about the fluffy environmental or moral reasons, think about the legal ones. Because law is being passed all over the world right now, which says your business has to be net zero and start to think about biodiversity repair. And it's going to come harder and faster. And if you're on the wrong side of that, you're going to be out of business. That turns into a commercial driver. If you're not part, for instance, of your customer's net zero solution, you're part of the problem and you're going to be out of business. Already, governments around the world are not hiring people if they cannot show a path to net zero. So this is about moving from the egocentric world that we've had through the ecocentric world, which is about sustainability, and isn't it nice to think about the environment, to actually being in service to the future. The concept of savor, which is a Sanskrit word which means in service to something bigger than myself. And indeed, that's your best definition of happiness. If you want to be really happy, find something more important than you are and dedicate your life to it. And the argument always is, yes, I get that. I mean, everybody's now saying, yes, I understand, things aren't working, things are falling apart, but capitalism, yeah, it's not great, it's not good, but it's better than everything else. You know, everything else we've tried doesn't work. And so, you know, what do we do? Well, when people say capitalism is bad, I disagree. I think capitalism is amazing. I think it absolutely rocks, but only when it's done by a professional. And if you want to see the best professional capitalist in the world, go and look at Mother Nature. Completely efficient. Nothing gets wasted. Everything is cycled. If you don't perform, you're cruelly cast out. Unfortunately, we don't equate for everything in the system, we just equate for bits of it. So our capitalism is the capitalism of the parasite, the capitalism of the amateur. So call yourself capitalist, go and study the professionals. If you're an economist, go study ecology. You might learn a thing or two. And people sometimes get frightened by those ideas, but I'm with John Cage, who says, I can't understand why people are frightened by new ideas. It's the old ones that should scare us. And sure, they should, because they brought us to this crisis we're facing now. And you might think, well, I'm just me. What can I do? But I remind all my clients of the great wisdom of Alice Walker, the American novelist, who said the quickest way people give up their power is thinking they don't have any. Well, you have all the power in the world to change it. And what you do does make a difference, and you are connected to everything around you from here to the moment you die. And the future needs you. And as Jane Goodall said, what you do will make a difference. Just got to decide what kind of difference it is you'd like to make. Cool.